Hello, everybody. Welcome to the episode number 37 on the Creative Insider. In today's podcast, I had the pleasure to talk to Grese Musliu. Grese is a former colleague of mine. She's a friend of mine, and she's an architect. But with the pandemics, she managed to start her sort of side hustle, which is called Pema Factory, where she tries to create different objects. You can hear more about it during the podcast. I wanted to remind you before we start listening to the new podcast to let us know what do you think about the podcast number 36. We did something different. We created this little challenge. So if you haven't heard it, just go and check it out. And also I want to remind you that if you don't want to listen every single podcast episode, now you don't have to, because you can join our newsletter on thecreativeinsider.com. And you can get every month a review of all the podcast episode with the best of, and you can decide if you want to hear every single podcast, or you can decide what to hear or not to hear. And last but not least, I want to remind you that if you want to support our podcast, you can support us on our social media channels, which are at TCI Podcast on Instagram or The Creative Insider on LinkedIn and Facebook. So keep supporting us, and thank you very, very, very much.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, Grese. How are you?
Hi, Georgi. Fine, thank you. How are you?
Hi, I'm good for the times we're living, as everyone. But I cannot complain much. And we haven't talked to each other in a year almost now.
Yeah, that's interesting because we live not so far away from each other, but this is how life goes sometimes.
Yeah, I feel a little bad. I feel a little bad because earlier in the last year, when I had some guests from the area, I would have them coming over at my place. Despite Corona, I always think one person it's okay, but in these times we need to do this online too.
Yeah. It's this time. It's weird times. We're just waiting and hoping that it's gonna be better in the future.
Yeah, but as in my life, in your life, in the last year has happened a lot from what I'm seeing from internet and from our common friends, so I'm curious to chat to you, and I think this is gonna be another occasion where I have the chance to chat with a person that I know and I have known for a long time, but never had really the time to discover the whole story behind you. So I'm very much looking forward. So
thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for the people who don't know you, you can introduce shortly yourself, who you are, what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Grese. Hello. Grese Musliu. I come from Kosovo. I lived in Kosovo for 27 years, and 3 years ago I came to Germany. I studied architecture, and I started to work in Germany as an architect. Here I am after all this time. I studied in Kosovo bachelor studies and masters. I started to study masters, and then I came to Germany, and then I started to work here. So I postponed my master's studies, respectively the thesis. because the exams I already finished there. And then last year, it's not anymore last year, it's 2019. In 2019, I finished then also my master's studies. And now I'm between jobs. I used to work in Frankfurt with Georgi. And I used to live there. And 4 months ago, or 3 months and a half, I moved to a new city. This is why I'm right now between jobs. And now I'm living in Wiesbaden. And from February, I'm going to start to work here as well.
Yeah. With the thesis story, it's cool because we had that feeling of camaraderie because we were in the same situation. I needed to finish my thesis in Rome, and you needed to finish your thesis in Kosovo. So that was a funny situation to have two people in this weird situation at the same office.
Actually, we worked sometimes together, didn't we?
I think a couple of times we did.
Yeah.
And you're the first guest from Kosovo, so you're another different nation on the podcast, and you're the first representative for Kosovo.
Very well. I have the pleasure to do this.
But I'm curious to know, because I know your background roughly with your studies in Kosovo, bachelor and master. But I'm curious, before you started to study architecture, how did you come to the idea that you wanted to become an architect or to study architecture at all?
It's an interesting story. I actually never thought that I'm going to study architecture. In my early years in childhood, I was so interested in arts, like in drawing, painting, fashion, graphic design, and so on. Sometimes I had to do a little bit, or didn't have to do, but like I was interested in interior and how rooms change the mood, and how the furniture move the mood of people. But this is basically it. That's what I actually thought about when I was a child. And so in school, I was doing also, besides arts, I was doing also good in sciences. I was good in math and physics, and how do I know, technical drawings and so on. So my father had this vision that the architecture is the best way to go, like the best profession that I could study. And he somehow thought that this would work, and I would have fun to study it. And actually, this is how I decided for architecture, and it was really like 2 months before the deadline to apply in the architecture school. The university, and there was a lot to do, like prepare yourself for this test and so on, which my friends already started 5 or 6 months ago to do these courses and to prepare themselves. And but somehow I managed it quickly, and then I got to the university into architecture. That's basically how I decided for architecture.
So you were influenced by your parents, like me.
I was totally influenced, or totally listened to my father, and I took his word for right. I thought when my father thinks this way, that architecture is the best for me, then I thought probably this is the best way to go. And it was actually. I'm pretty glad that I did that I studied architecture.
Well, I'm pretty glad because we managed to meet because of our studies. And I'm curious because we have had people from now very different places around the world. Some of the guests do too because they were our colleagues at MOV, where we worked together in Frankfurt. And I'm curious, how was the university in Kosovo? Was this knowledge for science and maths very useful, or was that university more focused on design? How was the relationship with your professors and so on?
At the university, it was actually the best way. I mean, it was very good that I was good in sciences because the university was more about construction, I would say. Most of the courses were about construction, structures, and mathematics, and structural engineering, and so on. And these were the most important courses. And that's how I managed to do well during the university because we weren't so many students back then, and every year friends had to repeat or just leave the school because it was like everywhere, architecture studies are not that chill. It was a really stressful time during the study years. We had so many nights and days in working, working for deadlines. I think my how's it called, the best number of hours that I managed to stay up was 40. I know that there are people that did much more. I mean, they slept for they didn't sleep for 2 days or something just to meet the deadlines and so on. But I think everywhere architecture is like this. You have to do so many things. You have to work during the day, during the night. You have to go to the faculty. You have to listen to the lectures, and then directly after that, work on the projects that you have to deliver tomorrow. And this was also in our university. The measurement, that's what we discussed in the beginning, science and art. Actually, my university was more about science. There was a little bit of art on it, but I would say from my perspective, it was much more science than I expected. And there was a lot of professors who were so connected to their courses, and they always expected the best of you. And for me, I'm a person who has, when I have a challenge, then I have to do good at it. I just cannot switch to this modus when I say, okay, I have to do good on these courses because these interest me much more than these. But for me, it's like I have to do all the courses, and the professors. I have to do all the courses good, and the professors, they were expecting a lot, and that's why the university times were pretty stressful. But of course, it was also fun because we were always working in team with friends. We had so many groups. We worked sometimes together in the university, sometimes together at homes, at my friends, and it was an interesting, very interesting period of life, I would say.
I think this is pretty much the environment you get everywhere, because I experienced that in Rome and then here in Frankfurt, because I came here first as Erasmus student. And I remember that you said during our conversations at the office, maybe during lunch breaks, and whenever we have done something after works, that you have also have had some Erasmus experiences. But I don't remember where did you go in Erasmus, and when did you go, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You remember it well. I had an exchange year. That was my third year of studies. I went to Slovenia in Ljubljana, University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Architecture. I studied down there for 2 semesters, respectively 1 year, and it was this was the year, or the study year, where I got the chance to get into the creative area of architecture, because the Faculty of Architecture in Ljubljana was more about creative thinking. I had so many courses that I could choose, like by myself, that interested me, and you had the chance to study a lot about art and history of architecture, and do some interesting projects, where you don't have to think about the structure of the building. Like literally, at one subject, which was the main subject. The professor told me you don't have to think about the structure of the building. You just do first you think about the how you're going to do it, like in a aesthetic means. And that was for me, it was like new thing, because like I said, at the home university, we were always thinking about structures, always thinking about where do you put the columns, and where do you put the how do you do what thickness are the walls, and insulation and everything. You have just to think about that parallel to the creative or preliminary stages of a project. So yeah, that in Ljubljana, it was a really new experience for me during the studies, and I think that helped me a lot in this journey of architecture of my in my experience. And of course, like you know as well, Georgi, we did a lot of traveling during that year. That's what exchange students do a lot. But for me, it was a new experience, because until then I wasn't anywhere in Europe. Until this age, or until this exchange study, I was always living in Kosovo, and haven't gone anywhere abroad. I was in Balkan, for example, Montenegro, or Macedonia, North Macedonia it's called now, and countries like this, Albania, of course. But I haven't got the chance to travel to Europe and see the buildings which we studied all the time in school, or see the arts that we studied in school. So this traveling, I put it also in my architecture experience, or in my study experience, because this is the first time when I had the chance to see the buildings and how is everything made. And this especially in Italy, I always speak about Italy, because for me it was a fantastic experience to see the buildings in Firenze, in Rome, and I was so glad to have made this journey in Europe. Yeah, and so that's my exchange year.
So from what you said, pretty much Kosovo has a more Italian way of teaching architecture, because in Italy was the same, and then Slovenia was a similar way of Germany, because Germany was also like, yeah, you don't have to think that much about the structure, because you're gonna make it somehow anyways. But what I'm also curious to know from you about, first of all, about your traveling on the Balkans, you missed the best, which is Bulgaria, of course.
I haven't been to Bulgaria yet, sorry.
Yeah, you have
But I
to.
was always planning to go.
As soon as we can travel again, I suggest you to visit.
Yeah,
Um,
I will do.
but what I'm curious also, because now you have experience in Germany and you have been in Slovenia and you have studied in Kosovo. And what I think is very interesting from this podcast is that with the opportunity to chat to different people which come from smaller countries like Kosovo and others. I've had guests from Bulgaria, last time from Iran, and the Western general way of thinking about these countries is that, probably the education there is not so good, or it's not at the level you would like it to be. I'm curious, do you think that, for example, software-wise or technology-wise, with your background in Kosovo, you were very well prepared for international experience afterwards?
Mm, the thing is that I haven't spoken yet about the work experience that I had in Kosovo as well, because this was, I would say, a preparation for me to move to international grounds and continue to gain more experience. Because in the work that I've done in Kosovo, I think I was in three offices until before I came to Germany, and each office I was like 6 months or 8 months and so on. And the last one, the last one before I got to Germany was the 8 month experience office, and it was also after my master exam, after I finished the master exams. So I was pretty much prepared and more. I had more experience, like in like an architect. There, I had the opportunity to learn about to learn more to learn the programs more, to get experience also in making plans or doing the buildings. Like it was totally different for what I did from what I did in the university. So that was for me a preparation for before I came to Germany. So that's why it was a smooth journey. It wasn't like I had to learn something from the. I always worked in ArchiCAD. That's something that I was lucky to have, because in Kosovo I worked also in ArchiCAD, and when I come to Germany it was also ArchiCAD. Luckily, to this office where I used to work, and the only different thing was that it was in the office in Germany they were working in ArchiCAD, but in a higher level. They were using all the features of ArchiCAD, like this smart planning, it's called. And this was new for me, and that was something that I needed to learn. And it took me, like, I would say, a year until I got all the things needed to work on a project in smart planning in ArchiCAD. But this is how it went. I mean, it wasn't that huge difference like it was for some friends of mine, or like you mentioned, some people who you also had here in your podcast. The difference was, of course, in like planning methods, working methods. Because in Kosovo, I was totally used in another environment of work. The environment of work in Kosovo was totally different in Germany, and that was for me a little bit of culture shock when I came to Germany, in the office. Firstly, because of the seriousness that it's taken in Germany during the work. You don't. I find. I mean, I found that time in the beginning. I found that we weren't talking too much to the colleagues, and we weren't having like so-called family time. I was always looking for this family time in the office because this is how I was used to in the offices in Kosovo. And in Germany it was all about it's also now about work, but I'm talking about back then because back then I didn't understand and now I understand more. So I had this culture shock. I would say that it's so much about working and not getting so social with the colleagues, work colleagues, and the work planning methods, like I mentioned, totally different from Kosovo. And this was something that I also I had to deal with within this first year. It was also, of course, a huge thing was the language, because I didn't know so much German. When I came, I was really like 20% in German, and I had to take courses and so on, and not knowing the language and this total different environment of the work was for me pretty challenging. But within a year, I got used to the things how in Germany how the things are made, and I think now I understand more about or I'm feeling more comfortable now in this in the German work environment as I did back then. So this was the challenge for me.
I think this is a little bit of a challenge for everyone who comes from abroad, because probably here in Germany there are the highest working standards in the world. So it's and I mean quality-wise, I don't think stress-wise, because I've heard from intercontinental colleagues that in, for example, Asian areas or other areas, the competition is even harder and very stressful. But to make a step back, how did you transition in Kosovo from like being a student to get some architectural job on the side? Was that only during your master, or was that already during your bachelor? When did you start having these professional experiences?
I started. This went also smoothly for me, luckily. After my bachelor studies, I no, it was actually not after my bachelor studies, but during the bachelor studies, when I had this exchange year in Slovenia. I came back to Kosovo and then to continue the fourth year of studies. But before I went to Slovenia, I had so many courses that I didn't finish on time before I left. So I had to do them within 2-3 months, all of the courses, and there were a lot of courses which were pretty where you have to prepare yourself pretty good, and I hadn't had so many time, and I had some problems with the courses that I did in Slovenian. With the transition to Kosovo, there were some complications, how the courses are translated and so on. So before giving myself too much stress, finishing all of these courses and so on, I said, okay, I can do something else this year. I could I could start to work somewhere and then continue the to finish these courses afterwards. And this is how I did. I had the possibility or opportunity to work at in an office from my professor, from a good professor of mine, which I admired, and I worked there as a junior architect, like how is it called in Germany, Werkstudent, working student. And this was the first experience for me. After that, after like 6 or 7 months, I had to continue then my studies because it was time, and I did so. And until I finished bachelor, I didn't work anywhere. After my bachelor studies, after bachelor studies, I had the opportunity to do some practical work at the municipality of Pristina. Pristina is my city. It's the main city of Kosovo, and I had the opportunity to work in the urban department, the municipality of Pristina, and that's how I gained more experience for 6 months working there. And after that, I continued with the master studies. And after I did the exams of master studies, I had this opportunity to come to Germany. I haven't told you or your listeners yet how it came to this idea. Why did I come to Germany? It was then between this after I finished the master exams, I came to visit my aunt in Germany, and she knew a friend who was working with this office where me and Georgi worked, and he knew that they were looking for some employees, and so he convinced me to apply to the office, and I applied, and then it worked. And I could start, but I had to get the working visa to be able to work in Germany, of course. And that I had to go to Kosovo back and to get it, because you cannot do it from here. So when I went there, it was supposed to take like 3 months until I get the working visa, but actually it took a year. It was exhausting. But during this year, then, of course, in Kosovo, I applied for some jobs there. During this waiting time for the visa, because I had no idea when it's going to work. So I started to work in an office, also a professor, but not my professor, a professor of university at his studio. This was a how is it called, that verb project?
A competition?
Competition, yeah. A competition project for 3-4 months. It was for a natural museum in Kosovo. And then after I finished this project, I got then a job at an office where I continued to work until 1 month before coming to Germany. So this was my experience in Kosovo, and the last job that I had in Kosovo was pretty much a good job for me. It was the best experience that I have until then, and it was a studio where we did a lot of residential buildings, one huge residential building, and then also interior projects, which I'm really fond to, or I was really interested, or am still interested in so such things, interior projects. And yeah, that was a really nice time there. And a really, really good experience before coming to Germany. That's how this work there prepared me actually before I came to Germany.
Yeah, I remember the time when you arrived and then you needed to go back and then come back. Then here it was crazy times.
Yeah.
And
you were there working already in the movie in this office.
yeah, I remember that when you arrived to work in our office, I was already there for some months. I don't know if it was already a year or some months. And then I remember you were talking in English with us in the beginning, when the first time when you came briefly and then you needed to leave. And I remember that I was happy that you were there because I enjoyed more to speak English than German. But on the other side, I was like, damn it. When I started, they didn't let me speak English. And now she's allowed to speak English. That's unfair.
It's interesting because I had this the same thoughts I had when another colleague of us came to the office. Sam, you remember Sam? He was speaking German and speaking English all the time. Also, after 6 months being in the office, and we had to learn German from the beginning.
Sam was on the podcast. If the people want to hear about Sam, they should go on the podcast number 9. He was one of the first. He was one of the first people to come to the podcast because I thought, okay, how many people know people from New Zealand here in Europe? So that was interesting.
Well, no, that's a podcast I didn't hear.
Well, then you should go recover. It is number 9, and it's actually one of the best podcasts with the most downloads because his story was really funny.
I'm really interested in hearing his story.
You should check it.
Of what I got from the office because in podcasts you get to explore more. So I think I'm gonna listen to it. The first thing that I'm gonna do is listen to Sam's podcast.
Yeah, I think it's very cool for the people that know you to listen to podcasts too, because they also get to hear the full story without, which normally you don't do with people that you know.
Yeah.
But beside work, we have been also, closer friends because I think also the whole thing that we're abroad as a foreigners, because although, you can get as cozy and as comfortable you can want for in Germany, but you still, like when you see someone from abroad, you have this feeling of camaraderie because you think, okay, he needed to go through fire like me to learn German and to adapt with.
And we have another thing that we come from. Both of us come from Balkan.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And we have spent also sometimes after work on like drinking in the summer when it was possible to meet each other back in the days. Back then, it feels
days, yeah.
It feels so far away in the past. It's so crazy. I was talking to my girlfriend a couple of days ago that now it feels so weird when you see videos of people, in the bars, or because in movies sometimes you see, people that are in the bars or they're gathering together, and you think, oh my God, they're not wearing a mask. They're gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at them, I think, oh, how did I make this thing all these years? I went for coffee and for a drink, and I didn't think about how gorgeous that feeling is just doing that. Because now I can analyze and see how amazing is only doing this thing, like going for a coffee, meeting a friend for free, no mask, no distance to each other. The joy in small things. It's really interesting now to see these kind of things that happened in back then, and now we don't have a chance to make them.
But during during that time, I got to learn your passion about about design. You were used to paint. You were doing some visualizations because you wanted to be more creative. And I wanted to know if there is a specific moment during your studies or during your career where you got this passion for these things, and also you're pretty much you like to read books that are not like some very superficial books, but interesting books. So I'm curious, like, if you had side passion during this whole time about this design and art, and where did this passion started?
Yeah, so you mean this passion about design and art and the books I read? That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, because sometimes I've been surprised by your knowledge about, certain furniture, who's the designer, or you have specific taste for some designs. So I was curious because it's not obvious that people who are studying architecture are going to have that knowledge and that passion. So I was curious if it just came or there was specific influence on you.
I think this has to do with my interest on arts when I was a child. That's what I mentioned in the beginning. I was always making something, creating something, being interested in details of something, especially like small things, especially interior things. I call them things because I don't want to mention something specific, because sometimes I could take a what do I say, a radio, and I could analyze it for some minutes to see how they made this button and that button, and why did this design, why is this like this, and why is this line like this, and materials and so on. And I was always creating something as a child during the school times. When I had the chance, I was always creating something sometimes also in fashion, like some bags or some dresses for me or my friends, or some making some painting, some drawing, and I think all this had an influence about how I kept being interested on these things later on. And then when I studied architecture, I was more in the architecture direction, and like interior and furniture, and those details shifted from here to there, but always had this eye on the objects that are part of something. And I think this is how the journey was. The books I read, I think this is an influence of how what we watch, also how with what friends we spend time with, and what interests us more. And it's a long journey. I don't know, but it's for me it was like that. It was always focused in creative direction. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I've noticed the last few months that haven't been part of the making of is that you have started some sort of a new practice, which is called Pema Factory, and I'm curious to know about this project you have been doing. So, how did you start this idea, and what is it about? Because in the beginning, I've seen Pema Factory. It has a Instagram page. What I found through you, and that you did some wooden objects, I think, for the kitchen, and now there are more sort of products that you are designing and producing. So how this whole project start and how it works?
How did I start with Pema? I think the first idea that comes to my mind, how did I start with this idea of creating something and then naming it like Pema Factory. First thing was after I finished my bachelor studies. Like I said, I always had this need to produce something, to make something with my hands, and to create something, and especially to create something for someone that's it's useful for someone, not just creating it and having it at home, but giving it somehow away. And I was talking about how, okay, now I have time. I want to create something after my bachelor studies, and I was sitting with a friend, and he he listened to me and he said, why don't you create a chair? I mean, he said, I'm always sitting on a chair all day because he works in IT direction. And he said, I'm sitting in a chair all day and always, I always have body ache. My back always hurts. My lower back always hurts, and my neck, and so on. And he said, why don't you just create something that's better that the other chairs don't have? This is, I didn't create a chair like that because something like this to create it's a huge thing. But this was, I think, the first idea that pushed me through this journey, or through this passion where I want to create more. And I started when this chair discussion was made. I started to create a chair, but not a chair like that, but like a lunch chair, which was the first product furniture that I did. And that was a wooden chair made of wood and produced in CNC machine. And I had this thing running. It was a little bit hard for me to get into this producing area because I didn't have the tools, and you have to go there to get the CNC machine. You have to go there to get the materials. But the thing was that I got into this research and into this, like I said, this passion, and then I started to think about creating something more and more. And this was the first idea how I thought, okay, probably this is a thing that I'm looking forward to do. I would gladly do it. So let's name it somehow and put it on Instagram. And this is how I started. But I wasn't doing that much in the beginning, of course. And then with the work here and there, and especially when I came to Germany, I didn't have time. I would say within 2 years, I didn't have time to do anything else except finishing the job, and then this last year also doing my thesis. But then came Corona. Like for everyone in the world, Corona had some new gave to people new experiences or new possibilities for them to do something. And for me, it was that during the first lockdown, I had the chance to during the first lockdown we did home office, and after the work I had the chance. I was doing homework at my boyfriend's, and my boyfriend had this place where I could do this because it's my apartment in Frankfurt. I couldn't do nothing like it. And my boyfriend's, I had the space and the tools, and I started to do something more, and one day more, and the other day something else, and like this, I just continued, I worked mostly with food. I'm always focused on recyclable materials or ecological materials, and I did some little stool or some coffee table, and then I did some kitchen like
Like kitchen supplies. I told you. So I saw like something cutting board, something like that.
Yeah, something like this, cutting board. That's right. And then something for the eggs to put the eggs on. And yeah, this is how I was creating something with my hands, and it was so satisfying. And that it kept me more, and it gave me motivation to do more and more, until we decided to move together with my boyfriend, and then we got an apartment where also you cannot do this kind of things. You don't have the place and you don't have the tools. I mean, the tools, they're always there, but the place. So lately I was thinking, and I had this like I mentioned at the beginning, I am between jobs. I left the job 3 months ago, and I'm starting a new job in February. And I had this opportunity. We also have a second lockdown now, and I had the opportunity to think about it more, and to make more out of it. And this is how I got the idea of new ways of producing stuff, like new technologies. I was researching, and I came up with a 3D printer. And lately, I was exploring and researching and how the 3D printing works, and then. With my boyfriend and two friends of mine, respectively my sister and another friend of mine, decided that we could do something like this, like buying a 3D printer and start producing stuff with 3D printing. And get more official, because until now, like I mentioned, I did some stuff, and I also sold something or gave it away to a friend, but mostly to friends and family. But we didn't get so much official. And now with the 3D printing, I think we have a thing that we can produce more in short time, with much more efficiency. Materials are 100% ecological, and that's why how we started to think about getting more official and creating some more stuff. And currently we are working on this product. We started to create some lamps and vases, and these are some things that we're going to get on sale, I think, next month.
That sounds pretty good. I knew you were always thinking about doing something like this, and when I saw that you started, I was very proud of you indirectly, but I was very excited that you started, because I wanted to do something too, and I started this podcast for now. So I was happy that we both were doing something that's meaningful and that's enriching us aside of the 8 hours or 9 hours at work. But why Pema? What does that mean something, or what is the name about?
Factory, of course, is because of factory, like designing and producing, and not just a studio where you design, but you also produce yourself. And Pema is actually called Pema in my language, Albanian language, and it means tree. It's like a tree. Pema means a tree, and I had this a really big history of this Pema, because I don't know how since I was in my I think in high school, or probably, or maybe also in primary school, in primary school, I was somehow how was it called? I was always thinking about Pema, like trees, and I had back then was the internet going on, and I had an email with like my name and then incorporated with Pema. I was being ecological since these times. I don't know. I cannot really explain this connection that I always had with this name, tree name, and it just was somehow in my history. And I thought, okay, it has to do with a tree. I mean, it's basically a tree, but it's like it means ecological and recyclable. And I'm doing stuff. I'm mostly focused on creating stuff which are like this, sustainable, recyclable, and Pema has to be, and that's how came. That's how I came up with Pema Factory.
Yeah, so it's towards ecological material production. And about the production, I didn't understand very well. So you got some machine, like a CNC machine, or did you go to a studio that has a machine? And did that happen here in Germany, or did you start in Kosovo? Because you now said that you're partnering with your sister and a friend in Kosovo. So do you have your printer there, or is it here in Germany, and how does that work?
The printer I have in Germany, and this collaboration which I made with my sister and my friend, they are helping me with like other stuff. They are like not helping but doing other stuff in this production theme. And my friend from Kosovo, she does the business area. That's her concern and manages. And for me, it is like the creative and designing and producing. And also dealing with the materials. And like I said, the printer is me. I mean, here in Germany. And my sister is doing dealing with a social media and like advertising. The CNC, what I mentioned, it was because of this. It was connected to this chair, which I had the first idea of starting to do something. It was this chair and the CNC machine. That's a huge machine, which it was in Kosovo, and the idea was in Kosovo. So all of this started when I was in Kosovo. The chair thing. And the CNC machine was at someone's studio. I had to go there and like rent it and pay for it and so on. But now with the 3D printing, this is totally different. Because it's a small machine and you get to create really nice stuff out of it, and with a small amount of time. Like I said, it's like we are in the preliminary stages of creation or going a little bit official. So we are so much into studying the machine first of all, because it's something totally new, which I haven't been I had not a possibility to work with it in the past. So it's a fun time studying the machine and how it works, and it's like 70% of modeling, and then like 20% of managing the settings of the machine and the materials, and then the left 10%. It's like getting the things together. Like for a lamp example. You need to print some parts, different parts in a different in different times. I mean, one after the other, and then you had, of course, to make it together in the end. So that's about it. Yeah.
I see. And so I can assume that now the wooden product is currently sort of unavailable, or will be like in a different form maybe in the future. And I was curious, what is your workflow with this 3D printed design? I mean, people, I'm gonna for the people who are listening, I'm gonna just put all the links in the description as usual. And I want to remind everybody that we're not sponsoring any products or brands that we mentioned. It's just about conversation about the process. But I'm curious, what is your workflow now to create one of these objects? You have this, I guess, the first idea, that how you generate the first idea, where you model in 3D these objects, and then how do you, I guess, you print them with your new printer?
You mean the workflow now with the products which are made of the 3D printing, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. How do you think about the form of the object, and then how you make it happen?
First of all, I would say something to the thing that you said about the wood things, which is exactly like you said. Now, from now on, I'm going to not to continue on doing the wood stuff, because it's just a matter of place that I don't have right now available. And with 3D printing, I think this is how I'm going to work forward in the next months. But later I'm planning to also do something more. But let's see first how it goes. And with the 3D printing, it's the workflow. It's I have an idea of a lamp, for example, which I always had an idea for a lamp, but I didn't know how to create it. It was always awful. I actually tried to create a lamp, but it was always awful in the end, because it's such a complicated. It looks like a simple object, but not object but accessory, I would call it. And it looks simple, but later it's much more complicated than it seems. And with 3D printing, I have this possibility to create whatever I have in mind. Of course, there are limits, of course, and this is the things that I'm researching at the time, prototyping, like creating something and seeing how it works, and if it can create something like I have it in my mind, or just have to adjust it a lot. But I think it's going pretty good, because something I create now, I know some limits of the 3D printing. I create something on paper, I draw it, I draw the measurements, I compare it like with the dimensions and everything, if that's like user friendly and so on. And then I put it on, I start to draw it in a 3D modeling program. I model it there and export it in this file, which the 3D printer recognizes. And then there are some programs which are connected to the 3D printer, which are called slicers. And then in this slicer, you have to put in the settings that you want to have to the result product, to the end product. And then you give it to the printer, and the printer is doing the rest. It's like talking about it. It seems easy, but there are some challenges during this. I had to test a lot, print something and then switch to something else, and then adjust something and change something and so on. And then the printing time is it's of course not like an hour or something. Usually for my lamps or bases that I'm doing right now, I have bigger sizes, and it's taking more time, of course. It's like 12 hours for some part of the lamp. It's just that's the time you have to deal with it. And yeah, this is basically it, the workflow. Somebody would say or would ask why do you name this handmade, because it's made of a machine. Which I had this question in the past, and I think that like I said, it's like 70%. 70% of handwork, because you have to create it first, you have to draw it, and you have to think about in yourself how you're gonna do it, and then you have to model it. Of course, it's in computer, but it's still like something that you do, and then you give the rest to the printer. So for me, it's like totally handmade stuff. And I name the printer like a tool, or like machine. The machines that I use, for example, to make the coffee table, to work with the wood. It's like a similar machine, just another other just a little bit different. Yeah.
Well, that's true. You can say that it's designed by humans and made by machine tools.
Yeah, but isn't everything made like that, right? We always use tools, and tools are always like machines. Sometimes manual, sometimes automatic, but always we are always using tools, and more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting also the way the objects looks, because the way that they're printed in 3D, it's something very unusual that you don't see that often, and I think it looks very, very interesting. And what kind of 3D printer you have, and how much did you need to spend on that? Because it's something that's getting more and more over. We hear more and more about 3D printing technology, so I'm curious, what was your starting point so far?
I'm using right now. I'm using a big because there are in shop there are a lot of 3D printers that are small, like 20 measure like centimeters, and mine is bigger because like I said, I want to do these lamps which are bigger, and the vases, and it's like 40 and 45 height dimensions, and it's called anycubic. It's at the end it costed me less than 1,000. The printer, of course, costed some amount of money, but then you had to add some things on it, like there are some nozzles, the thing where the materials where the material comes out, and they are different they are of different diameter, like different measurements, and you get always different product from each of these diameter. There are nozzles 0.4 millimeters. There are nozzles 0.8, and like you have also bigger, but with the smaller ones you get better quality. It needs of course some more time to do it, but you get of course better quality. And for me, it's this thing that I wanted to explore and to research. How am I going to do this? Better quality or faster product? And this is how I needed to experiment a lot, and buy some stuff, and experiment further, and yeah, like this, and it's like and this is how it went with the 3D printer. But in the end, it's like less than 1,000, which I think it's really good. It's a really good price. I'm not going to make now also a advertisement for the 3D printer, but there are a lot of printers, like I said, in the shops, and this is a pretty good one. Um, with the amount of money which I paid, it's giving me really good results. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, it sounds great, and I'm thinking about giving you an idea that you could use for paying back your printer. You can make other people print stuff with your printer, so that so it can be like really a factory that makes stuff for others and make others make stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
You could, I think that it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting that sort of I've heard no, I haven't heard. I read in the magazine, in the online magazine Spiegel, which is one of the major German magazines, that in 2020 there was an explosion of new company being found in Germany. And it's so weird that despite the economical difficulties that are obvious around us, that in this time where we kind of all had this shut off of our friendships and family relationships, everybody had that time to focus on what they want to do, and they started up something interesting. So I think it's I'm gonna follow closely. What did you say?
No, sorry. Did they create a 3D printer, or they are working with 3D prints, or what did you mean?
No, that just people in the pandemic started companies, just whatever,
Yeah.
started doing what they wanted to do, like you did.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, started to do something which you the whole life we were thinking about it, and then now you have the chance to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really funny because, for example, the last year, in the beginning of the year, me and my girlfriend did a bucket list, like a list of things that you would like to do before you die.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of traveling on it. And we were about to travel last year a lot, and then we didn't because obviously we couldn't.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I had on my bucket list was to start a podcast. And as you did with Pema Factory, I decided to start a podcast. And it's very funny because you did it the same way I did, because you started doing just one object and see if you like it. And I started recording just a few podcasts with my phone to see if I like it. And then I went, I bought a mixer, microphones, and I managed to get the first guests, and now it goes on and on and on, and it's fun. And I'm very happy to hear that you're doing something similar.
Yeah, I have to say also, I'm really also proud of you that you're doing this, and I found your podcast really cool. And for some that I listened, also some of our ex-colleagues at work, pretty nice stuff, really, Georgi. I'm looking forward to hear from this podcast. I'm usually, when I have some free time and I think about, okay, what am I going to listen something now that's not so long as a movie, or not short as a 5-minute YouTube. I usually switch to your podcast and listen to the experiences that the people have made, and it's really interesting. Nice job.
Thank you, and I suggest you to listen it. I always say when people go to work, if they go in the office, they can use it for the commute. It's back and forth, or when you run. It's also I sometimes listen to other podcasts when I run, so it's cool. And I go to work by bicycle, so when when I go by bike, I listen usually to this podcast for 2 times. The one that I go and the one I come back, and then I'm done. But I think that it's going to be cool because when you have a bigger Pema Factory following and more products, we can advertise them on TCI and do a special edition lamp of TCI or some collaboration. I would be honored if you were up to for something like that in the future.
Yeah, that's something I would also be glad to do. Looking forward to do something more and bigger and working on it.
Very cool. Well, Grese, I hope to hear from you in the next months, not in a year like it happened now. I always say to all the guests that this is your first time on the podcast. I hope it's also the first time for Pema Factory being sort of shouted out on a podcast. And whenever you release something new or something that you want to promote, you're always welcome to come back. And hopefully by the time our podcast will become also a little bit bigger, and you have a louder voice, so to say.
Thank you for the invitation. It was an honor to be part of your podcast. And this is the first time where I'm presenting Pema in an official or a podcast like this. Really looking forward to the future to collaborate with you or to do things together or also to meet each other and not wait another year, like you said.
Yeah, we will meet for sure when we can hug again.
I hope this would be in some months, like 3 months. I hope this would be possible.
Yeah, we all do. And for the listeners, again, I'm gonna put the links in the description to all the channels that are of Pema Factory, where you can see the pictures of the work that Grese does and her teammates. And also, I want to remember to all the listeners that now we have also a website. That's thecreativeinsider.com. And it's we're under construction. We're building a bigger platform with more content. But in the meanwhile, you can sign up for the email list and get every month sort of a short version of the best of every month. So go and subscribe for the newsletter. So thank you, Grese, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Georgi. Bye.
Stops just like that. The whole world stops just like that. just like that.